Hello, and welcome to the Movers and Shakers podcast. My name is Gino Barbaro, co-founder of Jake and Gino, multifamily investor, educator, father, and mentor. Today's guest is Alex Corpolongo, nice Italian last name. His training and degrees in civil engineering, and he spent the beginning of his career as a project manager in construction. Over the course of his career, Alex has built an expert network of professionals whom he collaborates with in the multifamily real estate domain, and he's created strategic and scalable acquisition and management systems that he applies across the Tampa Bay area. Today, he spends his time optimizing the performance of the portfolio and sifting through hundreds of properties to find the few worth adding to it. Welcome to the show, Alex. How you doing, brother?
Doing well, Gino. How you doing?
Alex, with all those words in that bio, I did not write that bio, and I'm sure Jake didn't write that either. So kudos to whoever wrote that. I'm assuming it was you. If it wasn't, big shout out to Mackenzie or Michelle, because man, that is an impressive bio for someone who's only 27 years old. Everybody, and first limiting belief we got to get off before we start the show. It doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are to get into multifamily. Age has nothing to do with anything. Alex is only 27 years old. Last week, we had our closest club 8. Brady Pratt was on. He beat Alex. He's only 26 years old. They both started a multifamily. They both left their jobs. So, Alex, I mean, we've got a lot to really go over on the show. We're former New Yorkers, the both of us. And let's talk about getting into multifamily, but talk about your story, going to college, getting out of college, working in the city, transitioning down into Florida. Let's start off with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, and obviously you and I talk about this all the time, but obviously a big part of your story is, running the pizza shop and everything like that. And I'd heard you and Jake talk about that tons. And I always figured, and I knew New York, and just hearing you speak, I always figured it was like, oh, he was in the Bronx. It was something like that, like he's somewhere in the boroughs. And then when we spoke for the first time, and I saw, so you called me, and the town rang up, and it said Mayapack, New York, and I was like, "Who is this?" And it's you, and it's like we're from neighboring towns. And it's just like it's so funny.
It's a
Such a
small
small
world,
world.
isn't it? I remember you saying that. I'm like, I can't believe it. And I'm trying to remember the Corpolongos coming into Gino's Trattoria, and I'm trying to piece that together. And literally 8 minutes away, it's just amazing how our stories are pretty much similar. We both didn't like New York. We both picked up. We both left. We both went to sunny weather. By the way, everybody in New York, is December right now, and it's 75 degrees and sunny out there. So stick that in your pipe, as we like to say in Florida.
It's beautiful today, isn't it, Gino?
Oh, it's awesome, dude. It is unbelievable. Sorry, I'm going to stop rubbing it in. So, talk about, going to college, going work in the city, and ultimately transitioning, coming down to Florida.
Yeah. So it kind of starts there in the little bit of that crosstown rivalry, right? So anybody who knew me growing up knows that I was dedicated like the first 22 years of my life to the sport of lacrosse. I was completely obsessed. Plan what had a great college career. Plan was to play professionally. Well, couple injuries later, and that illustrious professional career was the best thing that never happened to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So on the other side of that,
How
starting
did you
off,
feel when that happened? What was the thought process of finally saying, you're 22 years old, you've done that your entire life, and that dream is gone? What was that feeling?
yeah, it was devastating. It was kind of like, people talk about like the death of the athlete, people who started off in these intense athletic, journeys it's like a piece of you kind of dies, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's something that I was every day. I woke up thinking about, I went to bed thinking about. So that being gone, I was definitely looking for something else to put that effort, that energy, that focus into. And gosh, am I lucky that I found multifamily real estate, right? So I'm building out, the beginning of my construction management career. I was a construction project manager in New York City. And going very well. I was working hard. I was moving up the corporate ladder very quickly, and stumbled across, I think it was a TED talk one day on YouTube, and it was something about like design your dream life through passive income, by this English guy. His name was Alex. I forget his last name, but yeah, and I don't know what it was. Maybe it was his name was Alex. Maybe it was that pairing of words I had never heard before, but
Maybe it was
one
that
click.
maybe it was that smelly person sitting next to you in the train, and you're like, I got to get something new. I just flick on this video. I like this video, and like I don't want to be here. So multifamily.
Yeah, you know what? I remember now, and it was you. It was you, that smelly person on that train. No. But long story short, one click later, and I had found my new obsession. So,
Mhm.
the journey continues from there. It was, one thing led to another. It's, it starts off with, just learning about the space, reading books, not all that different from many people's stories as they get into multifamily real estate in general is, you mix in a little bit of Robert Kiyosaki, Bigger Pockets, Grant Cardone, um, and you find the right info as you go. I am, obviously working a very demanding job in New York City, didn't have an absolute ton of time to be dedicating to this new passion of mine. So what was I doing? I was, searching brokerage firms, underwriting deals, building out my own personal underwriting model that I've developed on the Metro North, going in and out of New York City every day, right? So you got about an hour 15 on that train ride in and out each day. That I was just voraciously searching for deals and analyzing them, and just trying to get smarter every single time I did. And then really got to the point, I'm in that pain point. I'm in that pain point that probably most listeners of this podcast are in, whether it be somebody early in their career. Maybe they've offered on a couple deals, maybe they don't have one yet, maybe they're just starting to underwrite. But you're really looking for that edge, right? You're looking for that edge. And I was not finding that edge in New York City as I was beginning to look for real estate in Tampa, Florida.
Is that what happened, Alex? You decided, hey, this is not my backyard. I can't make waves here. I need to move to somewhere where I can get boots on the ground. I'm young enough. I don't have any really big ties to New York. Let me leave and let me go to Tampa.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. So it really started off with, obviously early on in everybody's education, there'll be, pick your market, right? And so whether that's your market, that's your backyard, or whether that's somewhere else. For me, it wasn't my backyard. You much the same as you, is New York was not where I wanted to be buying real estate. So I was researching a couple different markets. I spent a weekend trip down in Tampa and saw all the growth that was going on in the Tampa Bay in general, but specifically in downtown Tampa, downtown St. Petersburg, and looked at it. I'm going in and out of New York City every day, all these skyscrapers that are established and these buildings that I'm building. And I see some of these skyscrapers that are coming out of the ground in Tampa and St. Petersburg. And what do I think? This is a baby New York. This is going to be an incredible place to be for my whole life, kind of thing, right? I saw all the space that city could grow into, and all the great things that are, it's a trendy spot, tons of things to do. You're close to the beaches, you're close to commerce. It's just remarkable, and I was sold. So and the pain doesn't end there. I'm still making these trips. I'm looking to get smarter every single day. I'm starting to make weekend flights down to Tampa, the Tampa Bay, making horrendous offers on some multifamily properties. And a couple of those in, the flights get painful, right? You take 4 or 5 flights down with no results, and you feel it too. I'm no fool. I'm making these offers, and I'm not getting a second round, nothing like that. So I just said, screw it. I'm packing my stuff. I'm moving down.
What did your family say when you said that? Did they give you grief? Did they think you were crazy? Your friends?
It's gradual. I make it sound like it's a snap of the finger, and it's, I'm picking my stuff up and I'm moving down. But my family knows I'm this way. They watched me my entire life, in the sport of lacrosse, just in the way that I approach life in general. I've got intense focus. You can call it, I get obsessive about things that I'm passionate about, and they saw that I'm building this obsession with real estate. So they probably found it to be inevitable. There were probably little whispering conversations that I had over time with them, and it made complete sense. Obviously, they wish that I did not go, but gives them a good excuse to come down here for the holidays. So
Absolutely. And when you got down and you started the journey, you've already talked a couple of pain points that you had about multifamily. What made you join Jake and Gino? What was the real pain points that put you over the top that says, I need mentorship, I need to join a community?
yeah, that's the beautiful thing, right? It's that, again, this story is not unfamiliar probably to your listeners. They probably see parallels with their own life, and the truth is, to your listeners, it's like, I am you, you are me. The beginning of our stories is the same, but what are you going to do to flip that script, to take from the old normal and flip it to the new normal, where you're actually making this dive, going in, face first, and making it happen. So by the time that Gino, I moved to Tampa, and immediately I was looking for a coaching platform. I knew, there was a lot of things that I was doing well. I was building up my skill set. I was building up my team, but I knew that I had blind spots. And if you have blind spots, you're either going to take a lot of time to figure them out on your own, or you're going to join a team who can reveal your blind spots and maybe support you there as well. So I was looking for a coaching program right away. I interviewed with a couple, and what I was looking for primarily was, one, definitely specific knowledge and creativity in the space. I'm problem solving. I'm trying to figure out what I'm missing. So I know that I needed that. The second thing was leaders of that platform, whatever I was going to join, that were honest, kind, generous, and that I can be that way with them as well. And that's you. Kudos to you. Kudos to Jake. Kudos to your organization. That is you. And I'm very lucky I found you guys.
I need to reiterate what he just said. And this is for anybody joining any kind of training, whether you're scaling up your organization, whether myself, I'm getting some speaker training from somebody. You need to resonate with the group that you're working with. You need to know that they have experience. You need to know that they have credibility. And you need to know that you're investing in that, and you're spending a ton of time and a ton of money and a ton of effort into whatever endeavor you're going to. So make sure that that is a really good fit for you. Because once Alex joined, I remember him coming down. We had a barbecue. He came and hung out in St. Augustine for a little bit, got to know the team even better. Kudos to Alex. He comes to all the boot camps. He was just at this previous boot camp we had a week ago. He was there for the whole weekend, learning, networking. And when you join, what did you experience? What did you realize? Wow, this is like the golden nugget right here. And how did you start underwriting deals? And how did you start approaching brokers after you joined?
So it's funny. The big kind of surprise was just what you were just talking about. So I realized once I had spoken to you guys, I realized, like, this was what I was looking for from a creativity, knowledge, experience standpoint. What I was most surprised about was it wasn't only how I was going to do it, it was who I was going to do it with. So, going to these networking events, meeting you immediately out there in St. Augustine, and going out there a couple times since. It's always good seeing you in St. Augustine. It's always a great time, and a bunch of people, definitely Florida specific, but other people in the community who are, looking to meet, generate relationships with, generate business with. So that was what I guess I was not fully prepared for, was meeting so many people, and not just partners, investors, which is certainly primary and huge, but consultants, professionals, attorneys. These are all people that I have met within the Jake and Gino community, and phenomenal partners, phenomenal investors, and friends as well. So that was a huge upside that I was not prepared for, and that's immense.
So for those of you that didn't listen to Closers Club 8, if you want a recording, re-recorded it, email me, gino@jakeandgino.com. I'm going to echo the sentiments of Tony Castronova, who was on there. His last deal, he was hanging out in the hallway at a Finance Right boot camp and he found the deal through partnerships in that hallway. And that's what happens when you get around people who are talking about real estate. And we're not talking about the Kardashians, and we're not talking about hip hop. We're talking about business. We're talking about things that we like. And that's what ends up happening. All of a sudden, it becomes this mastermind of ideas and collective thoughts and levels of energy and excitement. And all of a sudden, you leave the boot camp, and that week you're flying high, you're calling brokers, you're underwriting deals. And that's I think one of the things that is amazing about it. And I think the last thing I'll say before we jump into your first deal, to me, it's always about the accountability. I had a call with my coach yesterday. Well, guess what? I showed up, I was prepared, I took notes, and I've got a follow-up, and I've got a homework. And it's not just the immense knowledge that I gained from that coaching call. It's the amount of work that I put in, because I know I've invested in my education. It's not a YouTube video where I go to bed and I leave it alone. I've got to put work into what I just consumed. And that's what I think Alex also realized. I'm going to keep coming to these boot camps because I'm going to get immense knowledge, but I'm also meeting other people. I'm, looking at other deals. I'm looking for other partners, for other investors. Let's jump into that first deal. What did that first deal look like for you?
Yeah, so that first deal came together because of all of the other deals in that neighborhood that I missed on. And that's a true story. So this was, it's a good area of St. Petersburg, which is in the Tampa Bay, and a growing area. So there was a lot of trading volume all of a sudden in this 2 square mile radius, right? And I was in Tampa at this point. I was making offers on these deals, and I was coming up a little bit short, but getting a little closer. And a new deal came to market, a well-known broker who I noticed right away was underselling the deal. He was pitching rents lower than I knew that they could be, because I offered on the neighbors and I tracked them in the following months, and I knew what rents they were getting. So that clicked right off the bat, and I said, okay, there's real opportunity here. So that, you might say, was a competitive advantage of mine in this process. And this is what I'll say. I say it all the time, and this is what I'll say to your listeners here, is that you have to be ruthlessly looking for your competitive advantage in this game. This past weekend, met a whole bunch of new people. And how great was that event, by the way, Gino? I mean, I've never been to an event that was that packed before, but even more obvious to me than that was that I saw so many good questions that were asked by the members that were there. And it was just so impressive. And obviously everybody there appreciated your presentations, Bill's presentations, everybody who presented. It was really fantastic.
Alex, let me just jump in for a second. Do you remember, it's not you who are just trying to constantly improve. I think Bill is on the growth mindset. It's one of our core values. We are always trying to get better, and we're always trying to deliver more and new content. And when you're only out there teaching, you miss the entire market. But guess what? Jake and I are vertically integrated. We manage our own properties. We're out there putting in offers. We just signed a contract a week ago, 120 units with seller financing. So we know what's going on in the market. Haven't done a deal like that in a couple of years. We've gotten a lot of smaller deals. This is a big deal. And guess what? Big deals are coming back. So we understand what's going on, and we're always trying to get better. And the quality of people in the community has really expanded, exploded. We have a lot of families. There's a lot of women joining on there. But first and foremost, I think they look at it from an entrepreneurial aspect. We create multifamily entrepreneurs. People aren't here just to buy a couple of deals and get rich. They're really here to build a business, to leave some kind of legacy to their children, whether it's money or whether it's financial. And they're really here to make lifelong relationships with other people who are like-minded. So as you say, there was a lot more engagement every time we do these, because we get better as educators, but we're also getting so many more high quality people joining this group. It's not for beginners. Most people that we really get in the community now are either doing single family, or they have small businesses, or they're in multifamily trying to scale up. So you see the quality, and I'm glad you noticed that, because I was really surprised and impressed myself as well.
Yep, exactly. And rising tide raises all ships, right?
That's right.
It becomes so evident, going to these things.
So you were talking about competitive advantage. You're talking about rents under market. This deal, when did you close this deal?
This was November of 2021. So yeah, to get back to the competitive advantage, I was just adding tools to the toolbox that I had been missing on my previous searches, right? So I I mean, I interviewed probably 10 to 15 management companies. I found the right one who was going to be a perfect fit for this project, who believed in me and who would work with me, collaborate with me, and build a great portfolio together. Construction is in my background. This is a value add deal. I knew that while this was not a heavy value add, I knew that I can do the facelift that this property needed to do a lot with less. Just other relationships too, building out along the way, insurance agents, many different things, being able to underwrite exactly what I was buying. So whether your competitive advantage is construction, whether your competitive advantage is you have a rich uncle or somebody who believes in you and will give you cheap money, or whether your competitive advantage is knowing exactly what your income and expenses are going to be, you're a fantastic underwriter for whatever you're purchasing. You need to find that. Maybe it's one, maybe it's many that you can stack. But you have to find out something that's going to differentiate you and be great at, or the best at, or be great at a bunch of things. And guess what you become the best at is doing deals.
Don't want to put you on the spot right now, but we spoke about the buy right criteria this past weekend. Did you have a buy right criteria before you joined? And have you created one? And have you really started using one?
Yes. So, and it has evolved as well.
Excellent.
Yes, it absolutely, and that's what I'm talking about, right? So I'm building this underwriting model on the Metro North, going in and out of the city 5 years ago. And I have saved versions of that underwriting model from 5 years ago. I couldn't buy a deal with that model today, right? But I've built it out. I've added things to that criteria. I've adjusted things. I adjust things all the time. I'm in conversations with my insurance agent all the time on how to be writing insurance going into these properties these days. There's tons. These are adjusting all the time. What I will say is that you shouldn't adjust your criteria in the middle of a deal, right? Don't change your plan all the time. You have to every day look in the mirror and figure out what piece of you today needs to die off so that you can become who you want to be tomorrow, right? But don't adjust your plan when you're in the plan, because that's probably usually a compromise, right? Don't hit the snooze button in the morning, right? If you have a plan, you're going to wake up at a certain time, that alarm goes off, get up. If you're tired, say, okay, maybe I'll wake up later tomorrow when it's the plan, right? So build that criteria out. I did have the criteria going in. A lot of my deals are pretty similar, right? My criteria adjusts, it's tweaks all the time, right? It's finding, you got to be like water in a certain way, whereas you're adjusting, with your skill set too. Sometimes there's there's new facets of your business that you could underwrite into your strategy and utilize for certain deals, So, my criteria, I mean, my deals are value add deals, not too old vintage. I mean, we're looking at 70s, 80s buildings, concrete blocks, strong buildings that are structurally sound, that have neighbors that are renting for a whole lot more than they are of the same vintage.
And when you said about that, the criteria, it does change, because back in 2017, we're more in a buyer's market than a seller's market. So obviously cap rates are different. Cash on cash is different. The C properties are a lot cheaper than they are right now. So it's the same with us as we've refined and gone through the different market cycles. Anyone who doesn't know the 3 pillars of real estate, hit me up, Gino, jakeandgino.com. I'll give you a free copy of Creative Cash. It talks about the 3 pillars of real estate. It also talks about seller financing. This deal we just put on the contract, it's a 2006 build. It's got ones, but predominantly 2s and 3s. The rents are under market. We know, because we own a property right next door, between $300 and $400 below market on each unit. The value adds, we're going to add washer and dryer hookups there. There's plenty of parking. It's brick. Its median income is about $60,000. I mean, it checks all of our buy right criteria. And that's what we're talking about. Going into a deal, understanding it. But a month later, the market may have shifted. Interest rates may have gone up and things changed. So understanding what your buy right criteria is so important to your crucial success. It's not manage right, finance right. It's buy right, manage right, and finance right. So you've closed this deal now. How have you been able to scale? Remember, you're only 27 years old. You don't have any money. You don't have a balance sheet. How has that progress been over the last year to be able to scale and add on a couple hundred more units?
Yeah, so it's, it's again, and it starts even before that deal, right? I am very seriously, and I wasn't shy about it. I'm letting the people that I know that this is what I'm doing. I got close on some of these deals. The beautiful thing is, one of those deals in the neighborhood that I got really close on, right? To the point where I was telling my friends and family about this deal, saying, "Hey, I got this one. I got it on the hook. Here it comes, here it comes, here it comes." And then it fell out. I had a pitch deck built on that deal already. I was sharing with people. What better than 3 months or whatever it was, 6 months later, to have a new deal, same neighborhood, that would hit those better returns than that one? Because guess what? That property that was sold 6 months ago has a fantastic owner that has done all the hard work for us. He's paved the way in that location for us to do a lot with a little, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what was the question?
It was basically, how'd you be able to scale up? I mean, like, you're only 27 years old. The money runs out. I mean, how do you get into your next few deals?
Yeah. So again, not being shy. I'm telling my story, sharing some of the successes of that first deal. That's been a great deal to be a part of, right? It's fun to share news of your deal when it's doing very well. So sharing those successes with other friends and family of my own, but also working with, a lot of times, members of this community, of the Jake and Gino community. I have found, since that deal, a partner in that deal was from the Jake and Gino community. I have done 2 additional deals. I've done 3 deals since then, but 2 additional deals that also had Jake and Gino members as partners, as investors. So it's really, from that point, it's, again, how have I scaled up? It's continuing to build out my criteria, continuing to hone in on my competitive advantages and try to build more. But then just networking, finding the right team members who are going to join you in this process. And that's what I've done.
I love that. That is awesome. I mean, what's the next step for you in multifamily? What are you looking to achieve in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I think just to continue skilling up and continuing to build the team. Not everyone has a smarter, funnier, more handsome, hardworking brother that could add rocket fuel to their journey like I do. You haven't met my brother yet.
No.
Justin is in the business now, and
so that's your competitive advantage right there. That's another competitive advantage, isn't it?
It's certainly a good one. It's certainly a good one. But so not everybody has somebody like that who know, like, and trust, and can join you in this business. But everybody, like I said, everybody can take a look in the mirror every single day and figure out what they need to change to get to where they want to be tomorrow. So and that takes courage, that takes diligence to continually doing that every single day, but it's worth it. So what am I looking to do in the next 12 months? In the next 12 months, I've got a goal to have $100 million worth of assets under management in the portfolio.
That is awesome.
So, yeah, and it's viable, it's doable. And again, I look at myself every single day to figure out, am I on the right path to getting there? And the answer is always no, right? The answer is always no. And so what am I constantly adjusting? What am I tweaking here and there to make sure I get there? Who am I meeting here and there to make sure I get there?
Wow. Before we sign off and I wrap up the whole show, where can the listeners get a hold of you?
Yeah, so plenty of places on the website. So ravenreal.com, Raven like the bird, real like real estate.com. We've got a lot of content on there. We've got a blog on there, and then just some of the stuff that we're doing with the portfolio. I'm on social media as well. LinkedIn, you could find me, Alex Corpolongo. Instagram, you could find my brother and I. The account is jewel.rise, and that's Jewel, Jual, for Justin and Alex, .rise, because we're rising up. So, watch us fly or fly with us.
I love that. You have a young Alex Corpolongo in New York, probably going to Gino's Trattoria, eating the best pizza in New York. Just saying. Doesn't even know that one day he's going to college, getting on the train, doing some underwriting, sitting in the Metro North, an hour each way. Man, that train ride sucks. I did it. Don't want to do it. And he probably said to himself, I can't see myself doing this for the next 25 to 30 years. I got a piece out of here. I hate the weather. Don't like the politics up here. I can't find any real estate up here. I'm heading south. I'm packing my bags and going south. And his Italian mom is probably like, Alex, don't leave me. And he's like, you know what, Mom, I got to do what I got to do. So he gets down to Tampa Bay, starts looking at deals. And I'm sure he threw in some crazy offers, at least to the brokers, not to him, probably pissing some of them off. And he's saying, what's going on? I can't figure this thing out. I can't get a deal here. Well, you know what? I need to find somebody that can help me. I need success leaves clues. I'm looking for mentors. Goes up, signs up to the Jake and Gino community. A week later, he's in St. Augustine hanging out with the crew. And then he's going to his first boot camp. And then all of a sudden in November of 2021, puts his first deal under contract. And he's like, well, it wasn't that hard. I mean, I missed one down the street 3 months ago, but this one's got great returns. Closes that one, continues. And he's obsessed. His obsession to become better at multifamily. He leaves his job in May of this year, only 5 months after his first deal, figures it out, and he's continuing to put deals under contract. And more importantly, he has a lofty goal of putting $100 million in assets under management in the next year. And if he does it, wonderful. It's not the point. The goal is the result. He's always working to make himself better. What's the next inflection point that he needs to get to be able to get to $100 million? He's not falling in love with the goal of $100 million. He's falling in love with the process and the systems that he's implemented. And what are those systems? Telling everyone what he's doing, bringing on people that he trusts, constantly going into what his competitive advantage is, continuing to go to these boot camps, continuing to network, continuing to raise capital, partnering up. These are all things that he's doing and he really enjoys doing and he's obsessed doing. And does he hit that $100 million? Doesn't really matter because he will eventually because he loves what he's doing. Want to add anything to that, Alex?
No, you hit it pretty nicely. Stay tuned. The journey continues. Just grateful that you're a part of mine. I'm a part of yours. And let's keep it going.
And this is just for my wife. I'm speaking to my number one fan right now, Julia. So how about that, everybody?
True story.
I want to thank Alex for coming on the show and sharing his story, being a little vulnerable, because you know what? It really isn't all sunshine and rainbows. There are those moments that are euphoric, but there are those really challenging moments. And I want to thank him for sharing that with us. And if you want to be the next Movers and Shakers guest, email us at mackenzie@jakeandgino.com. If you like the show, leave us a review. And until next time, let's go out there and let's make it a Movers and Shakers week. Take care, everyone. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, Gino.